How could I have lost 600,000 when I was 26 years old? That's got to be a little bit troubling to see, I would imagine. This is me at age 26. All I really did was I bought a condo. Picture of me here is with my best friend. I grew up in New York and I bought a condo in Massachusetts. And I conned him to come up to New York to help me paint it and put down the flooring. I paid him in beer money and Subway. I bought a condo. It was my wife and I, it was our dream to stop paying rent. We got together in the early 20s and we wanted to, as quickly as possible, buy real estate. We could stop paying rent and we can own an asset. We did that. We saved up a down payment of $40,000 and we bought this penthouse condo. Not a very nice penthouse condo, not in the best area. It did overlook a park. It wasn't a very nice park, as you can see, but this was the view that we got. We own this condo that we bought for $305,000. We had a mortgage of $265,000. Today, we still own this condo. This condo is still in my family. We had a CMA done on it. It's worth almost $550,000. The mortgage has been paid down about halfway. And I've got equity of about $400,000, a nice sort of part of my net worth. We have a renter that pays down the mortgage and our expenses for the HOA fee, cash flow about $50 a month on it. It's worth $400,000 and it adds significantly to my net worth. Now, I lost $600,000 in this transaction. First part of the lesson, which is thinking bigger. And that's the philosophical challenge in our head about what we need versus the most we can get. This is a standard advertisement for my industry, the financial planning, financial advisor industry. You see these gentlemen are carrying around different numbers. And what these numbers represent is what financial advisor world, you have to get to a certain number in order to retire. And that's based off of something called the 4% rule. And the 4% rule, you can Google this. This is common knowledge. When you get into your 60s and 70s, whatever amount of money you have, you can theoretically take 4% of that money every year if it's invested in a fairly balanced stock portfolio. So the way that works, so like this guy here who's standing here, who's sort of looking at the younger guy, his number is this almost $2 million. So if he's got $2 million, he can take about $80,000 a year for the rest of his life without real risk of running out of money. He's got about a 90% chance of not running out of money all the way through his life expectancy. There's nothing wrong with this. This is accurate based off of studies, over 100 years of actuarial data on what has happened in the stock market. But to me and my partners, we think this is a fairly limited way to think. It's not the only way. You can actually be able to pull a lot more out of your assets if you think a little bit more strategically. What ends up happening is in these conversations, when you sit down with kind of a typical financial advisor, is they're going to ask you what you want. So this person said, you know what, I make about $80,000 a year, but he's no idea what he's actually going to need. Right? 4% rule is kind of based off of what we want and what we think we'll need versus what the most we can get, which is really sort of what our philosophy is we should be thinking about the most we can get. Mike, tell me about one of your multifamily properties. What do you own?
6-unit, all 1 bedrooms in Newport, Rhode Island.
I know you like to hold your real estate for a long time, but everything's for sale, right?
Yes.
Okay. What would you sell me that property for today?
I know I could get like $1.05 million for it, but I think I would probably not sell it for under 1.3.
What if I gave you 1.4 for it? Would you sell it to me?
I have to talk to my partner, but most likely because I got something else I could go put it right into.
We just went through this little exchange. Mike has a number in his head. He knows what it's worth. He knows what he will want to get it for. And if I wanted to buy it for more, he'd sell it to me. That's maximum financial potential. It's a mindset that the 4% rule ignores. It's thinking about what we need and what we want, and it's limited. Maximum financial potential is the most we can legally and ethically get. That offer, by the way, was a reverse of what Walter said. Does your head hang in shame? It was the polar opposite offer of that, right? This whole concept of thinking bigger is really thinking about your maximum financial potential. What is the most we can legally and ethically get? We deserve that. And you can't do that unless you're organized. You got to organize for growth. In order to organize for growth, you have to address to call the financial junk drawer. Now, we all have one of these in our house. I know I have one, but do we also have one of these? Do we have a financial junk drawer? And it's not really our fault. It just sort of happens the way that the financial world is set up. You get a job, you end up with a checking account because you need a place to deposit your money. You get a 401k because your job gives you a 401k. Maybe they match some of the money that goes in there. And then you leave that job, you end up rolling the money into an IRA. And then you get another job and you set up another 401k. And then somewhere along the way, somebody tells you that a Roth IRA is a good idea. Go back to your bank and they give you a savings account, a money market, and then it's just, this is what happens. And this is kind of where you get. I know this is where I was when I realized I had a financial junk drawer, for sure. And so before we can start to really sort of move forward is we have to get organized. We have to understand that it's not just one drawer, it's multiple drawers. We have a tax advantage drawer. We have a taxable drawer, and we have a tax deferred drawer. And once we start to organize these drawers, we can really start to kind of make sense of where we're at. And we can ask ourselves a question, of each single account that we have, of each thing that we have, each asset that we have, does this serve me? Is this serving where I'm trying to get to, right? This is the most foundational exercise you can get through. I'm going to come back to the 600,000 I lost because I know you've been probably wondering. I'm going to just pull the stats back up on the screen. I own this property today. I have a $400,000 equity stake in it. It's a multifamily. And this multifamily is in view of my condo, right? And this multifamily sold the exact same week I bought this condo. It sold. The person who bought it for $525,000. Now, if I had used my $40,000 down payment to get this property, which was possible, this was in 2005. This is when they just gave you money. You didn't even need a down payment. You could have just bought pretty much anything. But I could have bought this for $525,000 and had, I would have had a bigger debt. But debt, as we've learned this whole weekend, is not a bad thing, especially when we're buying assets like this. And that property today, it sold at the beginning of this year for just about $1.3 million. Now, if I had held that and paid the mortgage down and had a $242,000 mortgage today, 16 years later, I'd have equity of about $1 million. 400,000 less that million, $633,000. So it's more than 600,000. That's how I lost $600,000. The financial world, the product sellers, want us to think about pluses and minuses, rates of return. Very, very rarely do they address opportunity cost. And opportunity cost is just so important. There's so many eroding factors in the financial world that aren't related to product that can really sort of derail our ability to grow to a level that we want to get to. And so that we can get the most we can get and not what we need. A or B in this scenario, what would you pick? A is what I needed, right? I needed a place to live. B is what I could have gotten. It was probably pretty close to what my maximum financial potential is. We started to think bigger, gotten organized for growth. We can now start to play financial chess so that we can have wealth the way that we want to have it. We start with framework, accumulation, first phase. And that's the phase that a lot of us in this call are on. We want to make our small dollar into a big dollar. And we judge success in this phase by growth. Did our money grow? Did our net worth tracker expand? Right? The next phase is financial freedom. That's kind of where we're all trying to get to. We want to move that big dollar over into this column. And this number, the number doesn't matter anymore. What matters is maximum income. How much income can I get? What's the most income I can get in this phase so that I could be financially free? And then if we've done a really good job of planning and organizing, we could have a legacy. Now, passing on 100% is possible if we think strategically and we plan now for it. But success in one phase does not guarantee success in another phase. So A, B, in the accumulation phase, if you got to the end of the accumulation phase, let's say A, had $2 million and they were doing the 4% rule, $80,000 a year. Your life expectancy is another 30 years, and you pulled 2.4 million out of your 2 million over 30 years. That's pretty good. I would take that. But let's say B was using something that my partners and I like to call the 8% rule. They were actually able to pull $120,000 a year out of their 1.5 million, 8% of their 1.5 over 30 years. They ended up at 3.6. A is really sort of what we think we need and what we want versus that maximum financial potential. I keep coming back to that. And the answer is here. It's in this junk drawer. Understanding this, the earlier we can address this, the better chance we have of achieving our maximum financial potential. And the closer we get, if we're in this accumulation phase, the closer we get to financial freedom and we wait, we're frustrating because you have less time. Time is what creates a huge factor in creating financial freedom. And if we never address it and we get to financial freedom, there's really very little you can do. It kind of looks a little bit like a dumpster fire. This is me at age 26. I'm sitting inside that condo that I bought. Definitely regretted not buying the multifamily, but I'm sitting there with my son, and I had just become a financial planner, just become a financial advisor, licensed to do all this. And I learned how expensive college would be. We have these calculators. You could literally type the name of a college in, and it'll tell you 18 years from now how that specific college has increased their cost, how much it's actually going to cost. And that freaked me out. And so I'm stress sleeping in this picture. I will tell you that. My grandmother had passed away a couple of years before this. And by the time my father had gotten around to handling her will, she had left me $300. Now, my grandmother was an amazing person, one of the most positive people I've ever met. She had a heart of gold. She did not have a lot of money, but she had a heart of gold. And she left me and my sisters and my cousins each $300. And I was so moved by this. I felt like I wanted to do something to honor her with this $300. And my grandmother coming to my college graduation and my sister's college graduation with my cousins. And she was always the most proud person. To me, it was just, you go to high school, then you go to college, and that's just it. To her, she never got to go to college. She actually never graduated high school. She worked in a factory when she was 12 years old during the Great Depression. And so for her to witness somebody in her family to be able to go do something like go to college, it was like an amazing thing for her. And so with that, when she died and she left this $300 to me, I said, I'm worried about this college thing, for my kid. Let me open up one of these 529 plans. It's where you put money into it for college. And, I'll start making some contributions to it myself so that I can solve this problem, this thing that I need and this thing that I want. And so this is me, recently, it was my 41st birthday. And the kid sitting right next to me here, he's almost 16. And he's got his 13-year-old brother that's next to him that drives him and me crazy. And they've got a sister all the way to my right there that controls all of them. I have 3 kids now. There's not just one kid, 3 kids that have to go to college. And college is 100% as expensive as all those calculators said. I saved and invested, and I put money and grew my assets into this 529 plan. And I could now confidently say that I can fully fund my kids' education because I met my goal of paying for college. 41-year-old me today, who understands the 3 phases of wealth, knows that in 10 years from now, 12 years from now, when all of my kids are through college, all of this money that I have saved and have sacrificed and have grown will just be gone. I'll no longer have the asset because I understand the 3 phases of wealth now. I understand accumulation, distribution, legacy, accumulation. I did a good job at this. I grew my small dollar into a bigger dollar. And the distribution, financial freedom, I can pay for my kids' college. But once it's done, the money's gone. What happened to my legacy? I raised my hand. I asked before if legacy was important to you all. I raised my hand. Legacy is important to me. If I didn't understand the 3 phases of wealth, I would have missed out on this legacy. But because I addressed my own financial junk drawer years ago, I actually can make different choices now. This is me being frustrated because I ran out of money. But now I have assets and other businesses that can put my kids through college. And now I can take this money and I can use it to create a legacy. And that money will grow even bigger so that when my son is the one in the chair with the baby on his chest, this is going to be one less thing he has to worry about. So all of my grandkids will have their colleges paid for them. And if I make the right tweaks and adjustments over the next few years, nobody in my bloodline will ever have to go to college. Isn't that amazing? And it all because my grandmother never had a chance. Started with $300. So I've already started teaching my kids how to do some of this stuff and how to think strategically about money. We're at the very, very early phases of that. We're teaching them, in the little jobs that they have and how to set money aside, in the right way to build good sort of foundation in that way. They may never need this money. Maybe they'll set up an education nonprofit or something like that. But we teach them how to accumulate, how to distribute, have legacy, and maybe someday make a difference in somebody else's life. What's your legacy? What do you want to do? I've been in this sort of entrepreneurial world since 2004. And I can tell you, 7 or 8 years into this, I had multiple children born, had gone through, all kinds of different changes and adjustments. I moved 3 times just to make it fun. The universe threw in the 2008 financial crisis, just to make it fun and exciting for all of us. I can remember the day that I learned about the financial junk drawer. I knew that I had one, and I made a choice. I made a choice that was going to be strategic so that I could think bigger, and so that I could organize for growth, and so that I could play financial chess, so that I can actually have a legacy. Make today the day that you're going to make that choice. And if that's something that you're interested in, I would love to have a conversation with you and see if I could be helpful in you creating what your legacy is going to be, how you can get strategic about it.